This show is proudly supported by Habitats at Home, Australia's leading PVC reptile enclosure specialist. Check them out on Instagram and Facebook at Habitats at Home, and be sure to visit habitatsathome.com.au if you're in the market for a new PVC reptile enclosure or other reptile accessories. Massive thanks to Tyson over at Habitats at Home. We'd like to thank our podcast sponsor, Veranabay, reimagining reptile keeping through innovation. They combine quality, design, and function to create high-end 3D printed reptile products. And if you've got a unique setup or problem, they'll craft a custom solution made just for you. Check them out on Instagram at Veranabay. This show is proudly supported by Dan from Red Earth Reptiles. If you want to drool over some of the best looking green tree pythons in the country, check out Dan on Instagram at red_earth_reptiles. G'day and welcome to Under the Heat Lamp with Joe Mack. Today is episode number 30 and I've got with me Justin Wright from Little Brown Skink. How's it going, Justin?
G'day, Joe. I'm going great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. We had to account for our time difference today. You're in Western Australia where it's still sunny. It is not sunny here right now. In fact, it hasn't been sunny all afternoon. It's been pouring down with rain.
Yeah, no, it's been sunny for the last few days here, but we're getting regular showers each week, and it's actually dropping the temperature a lot to a point where it's quite cold. You know, being January, I wouldn't think of it being very cold in January, but yeah, it's getting down to about 12 at night.
Mate, that's freezing. As a North Queenslander like myself, you're not used to those sort of temperatures. I can imagine.
Nah, we have that 1 month each year of about 12 degrees, and then it's back up to like 30s.
30s, yeah, and we just deal with it. What are the days like? Are the days still pretty warm?
They're about 25, 26 at the moment, so it's not that cold, it's not that warm, it's quite pleasant. And so yeah, we're walking around each day, and it's pretty nice. You're not sweating too much.
It does sound nice. Well, that's enough yapping about the weather. How can you give us a bit of a rundown on your history with reptiles? This is a reptile podcast after all.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a big topic for me, and I could talk about it for hours, but I'm gonna try and stick to the main points. So my family's always been into the outdoors, so we would go kayaking, snorkeling, boating, fishing, and I think I just naturally picked up that love for the outdoors when I was young. And then when I was about 7, I saw my very first snake, and that was actually in Mount Louisa in Townsville. If you're familiar with Mount Louisa, you'll know that it's full of brand new houses these days. But back then, it was just basically a place where you could go motorbike riding, and I was taking turns riding a motorbike with my brother, and it was his turn, and I was waiting back with my dad, and we were watching him, and all of a sudden, this brown snake came slithering along, and Dad put me on his shoulders and pointed to it and said, "Oh, I think he said it was a taipan at the time, but you know, it's most likely an eastern brown snake. They're way more common around Townsville than taipans." And
Yeah.
I remember being there, you know, on Dad's shoulders, like holding his head, just looking at this brown snake, thinking, "Wow, I've never seen anything like this before." And yeah, I must have been about 7. And so that was my first experience with a wild snake. And the second experience was a year later. We were camping at Coomballoomba Dam, which is, I think it's south of the Atherton Tablelands, I'm pretty sure. It's up behind Tully. And we had seen a dead jungle carpet python beside our tent. And I remember seeing this snake as an 8-year-old and seeing just the yellow, the gold, and the black, and thinking this is probably one of the prettiest animals I've ever seen. And then fast forward a year, I was near Innisfail on a camping trip with my school friends, and a random member of the public called us over on this walking track and told us to look at this red-bellied black snake. And it was, you know, the classic ropey donut, red-bellied black snake curled up, basking beside the track. And I got to see that and photograph it with my disposable camera. And
Awesome.
after, yeah, about after that, that's when I started really getting into reptiles, and I started hearing the only good snake's a dead snake, and I kept thinking, I was like, what? That makes no sense, you know? Like all of the ones that I've seen haven't tried hurting me. And so I started delving into it and really got into reptiles around 9 or 10, where I got my first pet snake, which is a spotted python, and it's still alive today. It's about 20 years old. And then I got a jungle carpet python a year later. Started going to the Herpetology Society in Townsville, and that's where I met a lot of people from Aussie Pythons and Snakes, which was a big one back in the day at Forum. And then we also would occasionally go herping with some of the people from the Reptile Club. Um, and yeah, that was probably the entrance to Justin's herping adventures. Um, and then having JCU right in Townsville was really convenient for me. I would start volunteering and going out with all kinds of masters, PhD students, honour students from about the age of 10. So I'd have to like sign a little document when I was 10, 11, 12. And it must have been the weirdest thing for some people to take out a volunteer that's like that young. Um, but I was very keen, and I only got more keen as time went on. So yeah,
You were very keen indeed. Justin, do you
yeah.
do you remember how we met? Because I don't remember exactly how we met.
I was trying to think about this when I was driving back home this afternoon. I'm pretty sure we met at the pet shop that you were working at,
Ah,
and
yes. Yeah,
I
okay.
would have,
Yes, yes.
yeah, I would have come in with my
I
mum to buy some rats.
Yeah, that checks out. I recall, I must have been maybe 20 or 21 that I took you herping one night, and maybe it was with Elliot as well or someone else. But I remember
Yeah,
your mum dropped me off, and I saved her number in my phone just in case anything anything happened.
yeah,
I'd call,
yeah,
call your mum.
yeah.
You
So
must have been
that's
like 14 or 15.
yeah. So I didn't get a proper phone until I was 17. At the end of high school. So I had a little Sony Ericsson brick phone, and that was my emergency phone. So I took that when I was surfing everywhere. And that was mainly to just text my mum, "I'm good" or "not good." But yeah, so everyone who took me herping when I was younger, they'd have to get my mum or my dad's number, and they'd just let me go and do what I needed to do.
Yeah, yeah, it was great. It was good times. I just remember you as being this young kid who was just absolutely enthralled by it all. And I think you told me when you were like, but at probably that same night that you'd seen nearly every single species of snake that was found in the Townsville region. Have you managed to see them all yet?
Yep. So there's 40 species of land snake around Townsville, within a 100 kilometre radius, and I've seen them all now, which took me a very long time.
Yeah.
But I think there's about 15 sea snakes around Townsville as well, if you include like the barrier reef, but those are a whole different ball game.
No, absolutely. We'll stick with the land ones. What were the ones that eluded you for the longest?
Yeah, so everyone will know this, who's close to me, but the robust burrowing snake. So that was the probably the hardest one. Aneleios affinis, one of the small pink blind snakes, that was also a very hard one as well. Um, but I remember you got a robust burrowing snake way before I did.
Yeah, I did. I've seen three of those things now, including a
Through,
roadkill
yeah.
one in a campground.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've only seen two live ones, and I think I've seen two or three dead ones now. But yeah, the robust burrowing snake was by far the hardest. But these days, it seems like they're pretty well figured out around Townsville. I've seen them in
Yeah.
two different spots around Townsville, and I reckon in summer, if you're herping those hot nights, and you're being consistent and you're doing laps, you should be able to get a robust burrowing snake.
Yeah, if you're happy to put in 100 to 1,000 hours, you'll get one.
Yeah, not only that, but how much fuel it costs as well. Like that's yeah, a
Yeah,
big part of it.
and lack of you're trading your sleep for the herping as well. So there's all those sorts of things to consider.
Well,
Um,
when
but
you're 14, 15, 16, you can do that. You don't have much other than school to do.
no, well, I felt similarly about university at the time. All I was doing was herping and then going to class sometimes
Yeah,
back in 2015 or whatever that was.
that's
But
it.
so, what did you study at university? What was your degree?
Yeah, so I studied a Bachelor of Science, majoring in zoology and ecology, and typically it's a 3-year degree. However, I took 6 years to do it because I struggled with staying still, and I kept working in various parts of Australia during my degree, and I had to make some sacrifices. So yeah, I jumped around a bit, did a lot of tripping, got a lot of experience, did a lot of volunteer work, and then by the time I graduated, I'd already landed a job in the Pilbara. So yeah, it was a very strange way to do a degree, but I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Yeah, I think about that stuff a lot, and when it comes to having a degree and having the experience behind you, do you think there's a good balance there, or are you better off being leaned a bit further towards the academia or the true field experience? I guess it kind of
Oh,
depends what you want to do, I suppose.
yeah, that's a good question. It really does depend what you want to do, but I feel like if you're doing a degree, you should try and dip your toes in lots of different things to try and figure out what you really like doing. For example, I'm not very academically minded, and I don't really do well when it comes to writing like reports or like lots of words. Definitely more field based in what I enjoy. However, I feel comfortable that, and I feel like I will eventually get back to uni and do an honors. So yeah, I haven't like ruled that out yet.
Is that just a feeling, or is there something that you particularly would like to look at?
Yeah, yeah. I'd really like to look at North Queensland yakka skinks. Um, they don't get talked about enough, and they actually are the most elusive sort of big skink. You know, yakka skinks are like this big by about that round. They're a huge, big
They're
lizard.
massive.
Yeah, and I've looked for them so much in North Queensland, and they just seem to turn up in the most random spots where they'll be separated by the next population by about 200 or 300 kilometers. So they're sort of dotted from Cape York all the way down until you get to the southern Brigalow Belt, and that's the core of the population. I've never actually seen one. I think that's where the fascination has sort of stemmed from is the fact that I cannot find one. Um, but yeah, I'd like to look at some kind of population genetics on those yakka skinks to just see if they're all isolated and how they're actually surviving because it's just fascinated me for the longest time.
You're gonna have to get better at finding them if you want to study them.
Yeah, we'll get other people to freaking find them,
Yeah,
get them to
find
do
some
some survey
10
work.
year olds to volunteer.
Yeah. Sign the name down.
I drove through the Blackbraes National Park. I've driven through it quite a few times on my way out to Western Queensland. And you'll find this most perfect tipped over log, like a massive hollow log, semi hollow log, with some
Yep,
like burrows ish looking sort of things around it and under it. And you just think,
yep.
this has to be the most perfect spot for yakka skinks.
Well,
It
they
has,
are
like,
there. Yeah, they are there. I've looked several times. I have not seen them there, but they are there.
yeah,
That's the
yeah,
hardest thing about
fascinating.
yakka skinks is you just there's they're such a generalist. You know, they've been found living on the beach, in the sand dunes. They've been found in rocky outcrops. They've been found in evergreen vine thickets. They've been found in like log piles. They'll live in pretty much anything. And that's what makes it so hard to actually track one down. And they've got really good eyesight, apparently. Like, they're very switched on, so you're very unlikely to just stumble across one.
That's a bit of a conundrum, being such a generalist species and being able to occur in so many habitats. You think it would make the likelihood of stuff like finding them potentially would increase, but
Yeah,
also
but then when it comes to trying to look for them, it makes them a lot harder. Like I like the species that, Mount Elliot nursery frog, for example. It's above 600 meters. It's going to be beside streams. You just go up there on a wet, rainy night, and you can just get it easily, or fairly easily. You just got to walk all the way up there. But yakka skinks, the blueprint for finding yakka skinks is just look for some logs, look for some scats because they have a communal latrine site. And after you see those, put out a camera trap. Yeah, there's not really any other way to find them quickly.
let's not brush past that communal latrine comment. That is very cool. Can you explain the communal latrine and maybe the community groups?
Yeah, yeah. So there's a bunch of large skink species in Australia. Uh, they're in the Bellatorius genus, so that includes land mullets, which is the name of a skink, surprisingly. Um, and then there's major skinks in that genus. And then you've got Agurnia, that's another big genus. And I think there
Big
might
genus.
be one more, maybe, that I might be missing. But they'll lay their Lyophilus, that's the other one. They tend to live in family groups. So mum, dad, and bubs will all come out of the rocky outcrop together and bask, and you can see them all basking together. Sometimes they're on top of each other. And yeah, they tend to go to the toilet in the same spot. Um, I have some experience with Hosmer skinks in North Queensland though, and I haven't seen latrine sites together. However, Hosmer skinks in Western Queensland, they do have latrine sites everywhere. They're like a large skink as well that has spikes down the back, and their tail's really spiny. Um, but yeah, so I'm not sure if that latrine site thing is all populations or if it's just some populations, but it tends to be pretty common across Australia with those large lizards.
It definitely occurs in captivity as well. We've got a pretty well, there's six adult major skinks in a very large exhibit, like 4 by 5 meters, and they all do little poos in the same corner of the exhibit, and it makes my life and my job much easier because there's
Oh,
not
100%.
the
Yeah.
poos aren't scattered. I just go to that corner and pick them out. That's where the poos are.
Yeah, yeah. I've kept scalyfoot legless lizards for the last 10 years, and or actually probably more than 10 years now. And sometimes they will just, they'll deposit their poo in one corner of the tub, and it makes it way easier. Just scoop it out, scoop the sand out with a little scoop, and you've cleaned the poo straight away.
I'm glad you brought up the scaly foots because I was thinking about it today and I was like, oh, I must ask Justin about the scaly foots and I completely forgot.
Yeah.
What are they all about? How you've had them for quite a while? Have you bred them? What do you feed them? How do you keep them?
Yeah, so they're back in Queensland at the moment. I've got family looking after them. Um, but I first got a little pair of siblings about this big. So they were eastern hooded scalyfoot legless lizards, or scaly feet, as I think it should be called. But at the same time, it could be scaly foots. um, but yeah, so they're great. They grew up pretty fast to about like maybe 30 centimeters long, just on a diet of crickets. Occasionally, I'll put woodies in there. Usually, dust with every feed, like calcium dusting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I keep them in 60-liter tubs that are quite, so they're not very high. They're sort of about this high, and then well, I can't see my hands, but they're about 50 centimeters, and yeah, I think maybe 70 centimeters as well. But I've got a lot of spinifex in there, and the scaly feet will go right up into the spinifex, and they'll hunt all through the spinifex. And then they've got sand on the bottom and leaf litter as well. And then I've got a bunch of crystals that I've collected, like self-collected in the bush. I used to do a fair bit of crystal hunting. I've got those crystals like everywhere, so that helps them with shedding sometimes. They can just rub against it. I spray them with water once a week, maybe twice a week. And they're actually the coolest things to keep because you can spray the outside of the tub, and they'll come up and they'll actually lick like a window, like they're licking a window. They'll lick, 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 and then they'll lick, 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 and they've got this big, broad, fleshy tongue, so you can just see it like meh, meh, meh. um,
Awesome.
but yeah, such good animals.
Super cool animals and very underrepresented in the Australian captive hobby. And
Yeah,
if you throw crickets in, do they like actively chase them? They'll hunt
yeah,
them down.
yeah, yeah. So I usually just throw them in and they'll actively hunt them down. That's one of the most exciting parts about keeping them. Um, but then I also forgot to mention I also had two adults. So the adults that had bred those small ones, I kept them for, well, the adult female died at about 12 or 13 years old. I'd had her for a few years, and it seemed to be a pretty natural death. Um, the adult male, he's now I think 19 this year. So
Wow.
he's a very old legless lizard, and he's extremely boisterous. You cannot pick him up without him trying to bite you or death roll. So if you have ever tried to pick up a legless lizard, you probably would know about this. You can pick them up, and then they sort of spin out, and basically you can't hold them because they're spinning so fast, and also you don't want them to
Yep.
drop their tail. So yeah, you don't really. I don't really touch the legless lizards too much. I just sort of keep them to watch.
Yeah, I think picking up a legless lizard in pretty much any circumstance is a stressful experience. The
Yeah.
last thing I want is a lizard to drop its tail.
Well,
Um,
yeah, you'd have half a legless lizard in no time.
you would. Hey, so I think changing topics a little bit, I think life or working in an ecological or ecology based role often lends itself to having a pretty decent sort of lifestyle roster, which is what you're doing right now. We just spoke about it earlier. You said you were basically doing 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, which is affording you the time to go on some pretty cool trips as of late.
Yeah, yeah. So there's plenty of things out there that I want to do. Plenty of trips coming up as well, um, and plenty of trips that I've done thanks to this kind of lifestyle that I've chosen. So I've never had a job where it's like a 9 to 5 kind of roster. Um, I've always worked swings, I guess. So you're working 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, or you work 1 month here, then no work for a little bit, and then you're working 1 month there. Um, I did have a job at Bunnings for about 3 years. That was the closest thing I got to 9 to 5, but that was all night shift work. So yeah, that was a little bit different, and that was like it was a great job, but yeah, not enough wildlife for my liking. Um, but yeah, so I get plenty of time to plan trips and get out and explore. And typically, I'll come home on a Friday after doing my 2 weeks. I'll pack up my Prado and I'll just go. I'll just blitz it anywhere I want to go, anywhere, any places I want to see, or I'll fly to a different state and do herping in a different state or a different country. Um, it works out really well if I take 2 weeks off because then I get a 6 week holiday. So
Yeah, that's
that's
nice.
that's what I like about it most. I've taken a couple of those now, and yeah, that's super exciting. That way, I get to spend a decent chunk of time in an area that I want to herp in.
Yeah, t totally. And Justin, I must praise you. I think you seem to be interested in things just because you genuinely are interested in them, and you sort of go for some of the not sort of so typical like animals for one thing. I do want to talk about the blind cave gudgeons at some stage as a
Oh,
big one,
yeah.
but also you even go to places that aren't necessarily super well traveled. Did you recently go to Timor? Was it Timor Leste?
Yeah, Timor-Leste. That was one of those ones where I wanted to scout it out. I don't really know many people that have gone there, and I don't know anyone who's done well herping there. It's a very difficult country to herp in, um, and it's due to there's people everywhere. You can be out in the sticks, and there'll be a village out there. They're quite friendly though. They're really friendly people there, and half of them I reckon speak English. So you're not like it's not super scary to go herping there, unlike what some of the media suggest with the conflict. You just have to avoid those areas. Um, but yeah, I found bits and pieces there. I went in a dry season. The next time I go, which it could be in a few weeks, it could be in a few months. Like I don't even know with myself whenever I get that thought and then book a flight. Um, but I would like to go after rain, and I'd like to get yeah, a bunch of the python species there, and there's a bunch of smaller random endemics, like heaps of I think there's a bunch of blind snakes there, a bunch of skinks there, but it's a very uh, weed-ridden island, and there's just every tropical weed you can think of around the world has landed in Timor and just taken off. So it's kind of like a survival of the fittest when it comes to the herps, especially. So you get like three or four species of Asian house gecko over there, uh, three or four hemidactylus
Sure.
species, and it's yeah, it's very much a Certodactylus gecko um, galore. So there's heaps of those bent-toed geckos everywhere because they can just adjust to things really well. But yeah, I'd like to go back there and try and find some interesting critters.
Yeah, forgive my ignorance, but what python species occur there?
Yeah, so there's extremely pretty reticulated pythons, um, and there's also um, it's not called a Timor python. I'm just trying to think of it. It's Liasis macloti or Maclot's python.
Yeah, Macklett's python.
So our water python in Australia used to be called Liasis macloti until it was changed to Fuscus. And so you get true macloti over there, and they're kind of like a water python that has a bit of marking, so it's brown and black on top, and a white belly. And I managed to find two roadkills over there, so that really has made me want to go back just to try and nail them. Because it's not very hard to catch a flight from Darwin to Dili in Timor Leste, and then hire a scooter for about $50 a day, and then go out and find some wildlife. Like it's a very doable thing, and it's not very expensive. It's only about an hour from Darwin to fly there. I'm very
Oh
surprised
wow.
people. Yeah, I'm very surprised people haven't really, I suppose, or herpers in Australia haven't really hit it up because it's got a lot of potential. Um, but yeah, it's a very interesting place.
So it does have pretty. I did want to talk about the logistics of it as well. So were the flights very expensive, or it's
So my
pretty cheap?
flights were $600 return, um, which when you're considering going to a place with vipers, that's the other thing. There's green vipers over there, and there's yellow vipers as well. And
Wow.
I've heard of a blue one being found, but that didn't have any evidence. But it was found by a mate of mine, so I think could be right. um, but yes,
Yeah.
so that's the same species. I'm pretty sure that you get in Bali and Komodo. Um,
In Solaris or
yeah, in Solaris. Yeah,
um
so I saw a couple of those when I was over there. But logistics, you just you get into Darwin, go to the international airport, probably the same way you would go to Bali, and you just
yeah.
go to Dili Airport. Um, I think you pay 30 or 40 US dollars for the visa entry to stay on the island for about 90 days, I think it was. And then you can hire a car, hire a scooter. There's all these little mini buses um, that are called microlets. And they're tiny little buses that you only pay about 20 cents and it'll take you most places in Timor. Like it's really cheap to travel around in those little buses, and there's actually a loop all the way around Timor on those little buses, which
Wow.
I'll be doing that next time instead of hiring a RAV4.
Are those little buses usually like really bright colors and like
Yes,
modified like
yeah.
insanely? Yeah.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
little ones are really like they're quite pretty and colourful, and then there's the bigger buses. I forgot what they're called, but they're much bigger and therefore more cargo and transport. So you'll see like donkeys, goats, chickens like hanging roped up to the back of them, and they're just transporting them around. I actually saw a guy fall off one of those really big buses. He basically did like a backflip when it went over a bump because there's a lot of really shocking roads there. And yeah, he did basically a backflip and sort of smacked on the ground and got up and just kept walking and jumped back on the bus. And I was thinking that's unreal. But yeah, so
That
it's
that's
a
not a
cool
typical
place.
sight in
No,
Australia.
no,
Um,
you don't see that.
when you're going there, I presume you're not just, going there without intent or without reading up on where to look and where like in terms of getting the information
Yep.
for what you want to find and where you want to find it. How are you going about that?
Yeah, so there's several ways, and it's like most herping trips to different places. So, iNaturalist is a really good resource to use. Um, and then I looked up a bunch of herp studies on Timor-Leste in the last 30 years, and there's been, I think, three published reports all about what they found. And I believe two of them were published by Mark O'Shea, who did a lot of work there back in the day. Um, and they were pretty useful, but as for species and what you call those things, that's all changed. So you just get photos of the animal and you get locations and you can go and try and find them, but it's just a whole different ball game when you're there and you've got locals coming up to you and you're sort of speaking some language, and you're trying to explain to them, hey, I'm looking for this snake, and they're probably thinking, oh, there was a guy here 30 years ago asking the same question. um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. But yeah, a lot of the locals are really friendly there, and they'll invite you for dinner with their family, or they'll show you around. And yeah, so I looked through those and um, tried to get permission to go to a lot of places as well, because I think the last thing you want to be is caught out somewhere overseas, not being able to speak their language and being somewhere you're not meant to be, especially
Oh
in a
yeah,
place like Timor Leste with a lot of the conflict going on. So
yeah.
yeah, I sort of avoided those areas. I actually had a friend over there who I caught up with, and she could speak a lot of Tetuan. That's the main language over there, Tetuan, and she was quite helpful to have around, so we could just walk around and
Yeah.
talk to people really easily. And we went herping a couple of times as well. Um, but yeah, it's I think I find that quite exciting. You don't get too much of that in Australia, where you can go to an area that's completely new, and it's like you start at level zero again. And
Yeah.
I really like that. And not just herps, but you're looking at plants, birds, insects, like you're seeing things that you've never seen before. And taking all that in, I think, is really nice. And I really like doing that.
It's cool too that you're doing it in a place that is not very, like I was saying before, it's not popular, it's not common. I don't know anyone else who's been there, let alone been there looking for herps or just, wildlife and nature in general. So you literally
Mm.
are starting from zero. It's not like you're scrolling Instagram and you see all these pictures of the snakes people are
Oh no,
finding on
there's
Timor.
almost nothing on Timor, and the same was um, when I went to the Torres Strait when I was 18. I just went up there for 2 weeks. It was an extremely lucky sort of trip, but I do really like working logistics and sort of teeing up different people, different things, and then putting a plan together. And I think that's one of the most exciting parts of a herping trip is actually the planning and making everything work. And I was able to make a lot of things work in the Torres Strait, and I went to a bunch of different islands and saw a lot of cool things, which not very many herpers have been back since. And it would be nice to see what other herpers can find in some of these areas, because there's just so much out there to go see.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the Torres Strait, because some listeners might know, but I was doing some tour guiding up through the Cape a couple of years ago, and people were always impressed at, you rattle off a couple of scientific names and people get really excited. But the scientific name for the pink snake found on Prince of Wales Island was one that got got people going. Obviously, Cryptophis incredibilis.
Yeah.
I would just pull some big yarn out of my ass saying, "Oh yeah, some herpetologist picked it up and went, geez, this is pink. This is incredible. What are we going to call it? Ah, Cryptophis
Pretty
incredibilis."
much what
And there we
happened,
have
hey?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a bloody incredible
yeah.
snake in the flesh. Like it's a proper salmon pink color. It's very impressive.
How did you find it?
Yeah, so I was on Prince of Wales Island, also known as Murralag, and
Maralag.
I had permission to be there. I was actually helping caretake a a little shack there on a beach, and it was pretty much directly opposite to Thursday Island. So it's like an hour and a half boat trip all the way around the other side of the island. And yeah, I had been quad biking that day. We did a 50-kilometer quad bike through the whole island. It was very interesting, very much weedy. There's a lot of weeds there,
Yeah,
unfortunately, and they're not controlled. And there's a lot of deer there as well, which the locals shoot and eat. They make use of them. But yeah, I searched one night. I was walking creek lines. I was thinking, look for a black striped snake because it's essentially a black striped snake.
yeah, yeah.
And I've seen lots of black striped snakes in dry creek beds. So I looked through the dry creek beds the first night, didn't see anything. I think I got actually a couple of nape snakes and a slaty grey snake. Um, and then the next night, I went out and saw the pink snake sitting in the middle of a dry creek bed. There was some pandanus nearby, and it's about 100 meters in from the ocean, which is actually, funnily enough, where most of the pink snake sightings are found, right next to the ocean in the flotsam or the debris on the beach. Um,
Wow.
so, yeah, I found it and I immediately showed the people I was with. They were strangers off the internet, but they loved having me there, and they fed me many, many cakes and gave me lots of ice cream. um, but I showed them, and they weren't even snake people, and they went ballistic. They were super happy. I went ballistic. And then when I went to release it,
Naturally.
yeah, when I went to release it after photos, um, I found a king brown snake that was about 30 meters away from it, and I had seen the mulga snake or king brown snake record on Atlas of Living Australia online, and I thought that must have just been a miss ID. But when I was there with it, I was like, nope, it's not a miss ID. There are actually king brown snakes here. Um,
On
so
Murray. Wow.
yeah, yeah, and they actually go all the way up to Papua New Guinea. But good luck trying to find a photo of them there, and especially since toads, there's probably not very many mulga snakes in Papua New Guinea now.
Yeah, yeah. And do you see any tree monitors in the Torres Strait?
Yeah, I saw a Scalaris. That was the only one I saw. I did see a frilled neck lizard up there as well. I accidentally hit the tree when I was going around a corner on the quad bike, and a
Oh,
frilly just went whoop. Um, And yeah, I did look for Prasnus. Didn't actually go to Moa, or Bardu. I didn't quite go up there. Although
Yeah,
when I was staying on Thursday Island, each morning I would wake up, look outside, and there was Moa Island and Bardu Island, 40 kilometers away in clear view. Unfortunately, the logistics to get there at the time was pretty difficult, so
challenging.
I
Yeah.
didn't get there. But there's suitable habitat on Prince of Wales Island and Friday Island and Hammond Island. Like they all have rainforesty scrub, um, which I'm very curious about. So who knows? I'll definitely be back
What's
up
your
there one day.
What's your thoughts on Prasonus occurring on the Australian mainland? Obviously, there's older records of them being in Iron Range and supposedly Lockerbie Scrub as well.
Yeah, I've looked at the paper describing or talking about those records. I am pretty dubious. I don't, or doubtful. I'm pretty doubtful that they actually exist on the mainland. There's definitely times where I've seen Keith Horney and they've been kind of sort of greenish in the
Greenish
sun.
hues to them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I, yeah, I think maybe people are just confusing them. They're very similar anyway, between like Prasnus, Keith Horney, and the other tree goannas. They're very similar looking in body structure and size. Yeah, I think if they're gonna get seen anywhere first, they probably would be found in the Torres Strait rather than the mainland. Because yeah, people do keep an eye out in the Torres Strait.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
Hmm.
Good to know. Well, we can only hope that people start seeing them, at least in the
Yeah,
Torres Strait a bit more. That'd be awesome. They're cool. They're cool lizards.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely.
and you've done some herping in Africa. Were you in Namibia?
Yeah, yeah. So I went over there a year and a half ago. I'd been chatting to my mate Kurt on Instagram a lot, and I said, "Yeah, man, like I'm keen to go to Africa and see some of these little fossorial lizards, um, and a whole bunch of African herps because I really like fossorial lizards." And he said, "Yes, sweet, like make it happen." But I think he was also thinking like, oh, I might not be going. But sure enough, I booked the flights and ended up going to the African Herpetological Conference that they had over there at the time. And because I went to that, I spent 3 days mingling with all these African herpers. It was fantastic. I was the only Aussie there. I didn't know anything about reptiles over in Africa or frogs. Um, but I learned very, very quickly. And yeah, we ended up doing a big herping trip from Cape Town all the way to Port Elizabeth. And that's like a pretty decent drive. Like it's, you probably wouldn't be able to do it in a day. I think it's about, yeah, must be maybe 10 or 12 hours. But depends on how many car crashes there's been because there's quite a few car crashes over there. Um, yeah, and then after that trip, I went all the way back to Cape Town, and then I went with another mate. We went all the way up, made it from Cape Town to Namibia in about 12 hours or 13 hours, and then herped all the way up for 8 days in Namibia, all around the place. Went to the Skeleton Coast, which is like this really unusual place with it's like the ocean hits the sand dunes, and then the sand dunes have many types of sand dunes. Like there's fine sand, hard sand, um, there's red sand, there's white sand, and different species live on the different types of sand. And it's quite fascinating, especially when the really low clouds roll in the afternoon. It's a very freaky looking place. Um, but yeah, we found heaps of good adders there. Lots of good geckos. Those glowing, well, they're not glow in the dark, but you shine a UV torch on them, on the Namib sand geckos, and the skeleton lights up, which is quite cool. And that's been a dream of mine for probably the last 10 years, and I got to live that.
Amazing. What's the thought behind the glowing? Is there any sort of advantageous sort of traits to it, or is it just a byproduct of something else?
Not, yeah, not actually sure on that one, Joe. That's a good question. Yeah. It's
I
what's
don't know.
interesting though is that there's an endemic cricket that lives out in the same spot as the gecko, and the cricket also glows, and it's the favorite food of that gecko that glows. So there might be something
Fascinating.
going on there.
There
Yeah,
could be
and
something going on there.
it's the only cricket out there that glows as well, and it's a very unusual cricket. And we got to see that. I don't think I've posted photos of it anywhere, but I will eventually. But yeah, that one also glows, which is
Yeah,
really
right.
cool.
And
Hmm.
those sand geckos, they're big. They've got big round toe pads, or
Yeah,
big
yeah,
flap feet or something or other.
yeah. So they've got these massive, big, like parachute uh, toe pads, and it's unlike any other gecko I've ever seen. And they'll typically sort of like walk on them like this, or they'll put them into the ground, and they don't sink at all, which is fascinating. And they're actually a really common gecko too. Like I reckon one night I saw 40 of them just walking around, eye shining, and
Wow,
yeah, just spotting them like that. Um,
they're pretty
eye
big.
shinings. Uh, yeah, they're kind of like a Gahara, maybe a bit bigger than a
Yeah, okay.
Gahara. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, eye shining was something that I did a lot of in Africa, and it involves walking up to an animal at night time, or with a dim torch, focus beam, and seeing their eyes reflecting. I remember Scott talked about eye shining pretty in detail a few weeks ago with you.
He
Um,
did indeed. Yeah.
it's a very useful way to find reptiles, especially geckos. And over there, not very many people knew how to eye shine geckos, so they will often rely on flipping rocks in the daytime, which I prefer not to do because it is easier to go out at night and spot them. However, it is risky going out at night because in South Africa and not so much in Namibia, but mainly South Africa, it can be quite dangerous. So you have to keep your wits about you, and you don't really go very far from the car, especially at night. You tend to not really stop the car on the road very much at all, so it does make it challenging to do road cruising, because yeah, people can sometimes hijack you, and um, thankfully I didn't have many experiences like that.
I was going to say, are you speaking about dangerous in terms of the humans or the wildlife? But it's
Yeah,
more than likely the
people.
humans,
Yeah, yeah,
realistically.
yeah, definitely the people. Yeah, the wildlife is also a little bit dangerous, some of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the people side of things, and it's the crime rate spiking as well. So I'm hoping to go there at the end of the year. If things go to plan, I can go again to South Africa, but we'll see how that goes.
What does your calendar look like? Is it just like 2 weeks of work and then 2 weeks in Timor, 2 weeks of work and then 6 weeks in Africa?
There- There's not there's not really a calendar. It's all
Right.
up here. But
Oh, nice.
yeah, yeah. It's well, no one knows what I'm gonna do whenever. Like it's kind of a funny thing. I just pop up in random places. Um, but yeah, there's some trips towards the end of the year, so I'm hoping to go to Madagascar. Um, and also gonna go to Europe for a mate's wedding as well. So I've never been to Europe before. That'd be nice going to Norway. Um, but
Epic.
yeah, yeah, it's a little bit all over the place. But I maintain it pretty well and make sure I do a pretty good job whenever I go to a new spot. Um, but yeah, I definitely want to clean up the those fossorial lizards in South Africa first though, because I think I didn't try hard enough when I went, and I brought my rake and I was raking around
You
for these
bought
things.
you bought your rake with you.
Yeah, yeah, because the rakes are really hard. Three-prong rakes, I have it on good authority, are really hard to find in South Africa. you just can't find them. You have to purchase them online, like a little handheld 3 prong. And so when I went there, I was asking my South African mates, I was like, oh, how are you guys finding these like Scalodies and Ocontias? And there's a couple of other different genera they basically look like a Larista. And I'm asking them, I'm like, how do you find them? And they just like put on these gloves, and then they just start digging at where mole rats have recently come out of their mound, just so like fresh sand, and they just start digging down. Sometimes they don't even use gloves; they just bare hand,
Yeah,
and they're
right.
just scratching through sand that's recently been dug up by a mole rat, and I couldn't believe it. Like that's their way of actually finding a lot of these small fossorial lizards, especially when the
Yeah,
sun
right.
comes up and it hits the patch of sand. That's where the lizards will come up, and the herping or the raking there is totally different to Australia. Because in Australia, you're raking and you're being very careful about how you put it back. You rake out the leaf litter first, then you rake out the sand or the soil, and you find your animal or the lizard or snake, and then you put the sand back nice and gently, and then you put the leaf litter back over the top, and you try and make it look as perfect as it was before you raked it. You can't always get 100%, but you try. Um, Whereas in South Africa, because they've got all these animals that are disturbing the soil constantly, all of the fossorial lizards there are used to it. So you're raking into disturbed soils, and that's where you're seeing things, which just blew my mind. Like these things are used to that disturbance, whereas Australian fossorial skinks are not used to that disturbance. And I thought that was a very interesting thing when I was over there.
That is an interesting. So they had obviously they had some success finding them
Oh
in
yeah,
those areas with what they're doing.
I
Wow.
couldn't believe it. Like we were pulling out things, and um, yeah, I was getting some snakes as well when I was raking over there. Um, the rake sort of helped, but their methods also worked pretty well. So yeah, next time I go over, I'll try their method a little bit more. But at the same time, I don't want to put my hand on an adder.
No, no, not at all. I was just
Yeah.
thinking. I thought wait, the way the story was going is you were going to entirely revolutionize herping in South Africa with this little three-pronged rake. But no, they
Well,
had a
I would.
perfectly efficient method of doing it anyway.
Well, next time I think I'll bring a couple more rakes and then start selling them off. but but yeah, it was fascinating, and like I did see I think 7 adder species when I was over there. So yeah, got a like quite a few, and got really
Seven. That's
lucky
it.
with the
That's very
herping.
impressive.
Yeah, I think I got
Yeah.
85 herp species in 5 weeks. So 8 days in Namibia and 4 weeks in South Africa, and I got 85 herp species, but I didn't see any of the big five.
Oh no. I
No.
mean, 85 herb species is pretty significant. I think
Yeah,
eight species of betas, eight species of adders is very impressive.
yeah, it was something like that. It was a lot. Yeah, it was fun, really fun to try and find those adders too. Like it's it seems way more doable than finding a death adder in Australia. If
Okay.
you tasked me with finding a adder or like a death adder in Australia in the daytime, I would struggle. I would hit a rainforest creek line, and I'd just walk up that up and down, up and down, up and down, and maybe find a death adder, or I'd go road cruise in a spot that I know is fairly good in summer. But over there, adders, you can actually just walk around in a day and spot them. Um, that was new to me. I was blown away by that.
Yeah, so from most of the pictures I've seen of them, they're sort of pretty heavily associated with rocky outcrops or like rocky
Yeah,
gardeny areas. And so they're
yeah.
just sitting out there in ambush or in the sun or what?
Yeah, yeah. So they're often chasing the sun, and yeah, you spot them basking. They're I think it's called Perengui's adder, which are the sand
Yeah.
adder.
They
They
are an insane looking creature.
yeah, their
Um,
eyes are
you know
like
what?
on top of their head.
I'm gonna bring it up.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, they're an insane adder. I managed to see 2 of those by tracking them through the sand dunes in Namibia. and
Oh man,
you're
how
just
cool is
looking.
that?
Yeah, you're looking for those little sort of slither marks. And yeah, that's them. And yeah, I managed to spot one that was sitting with just its head and a little bit of its neck exposed, in like kind of like a tussock, but a really open, large-leaved plant. And what
Oh
would
yeah.
happen in the desert there is there'd be these plants that they start growing and all the sand gets attracted to the plant. It, like sand catches. So
Yep,
they
yep.
build these little mounds here and there in the desert, and you just walk over to each of the mounds and you sort of have a look and see if there's any tracks in the center of the mound. If there's none, there's probably no adder. Um, but yeah, I remember seeing very small tracks in one of them, and I just lifted a little plant and or a little branch, and there was a baby little adder that would have curled up about this big, just sitting
Oh,
there looking at me. But yeah, so
looking at
it's
you with
very
those stupid eyes on top of their
with
head.
the silly eyes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's very very fun. Herping in Namibia, especially. South Africa was also lots of fun, and there's a lot of herps there to see as well. It's got a really
A
great
hell of a lot of
diversity.
herbs.
Mm,
Yeah.
not enough people go in there looking. um, but yeah, it's definitely a great place.
I think so. I've seen a couple of herpers do some trips there. It looks, yeah, like there's a lot going on. But hey, on your Instagram, Little Brown Skink, you're doing a bit of short form content as well, which I think
Yeah,
is
this one.
fantastic because it's yes, there we go. There's the bottle. But you know, you're not doing anything sensational. You're not, or sensationalized. There's no flashy lights. There's no flashy colors. It's just you with an animal. Typically, the animal's undisturbed, just doing its thing. But it's informational and it's engaging. Do you have plans to do much more of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I've got plans to keep it as is.
Yeah.
I that's the kind of content that I created my Instagram page for. It used to be under a different name, but then I changed it to Little Brown Skink a few years ago, just to try and give people an idea about like, hey, think about the other things that are often forgotten about. So, I could have called it something like big coastal taipan or something, but like, and there's nothing wrong with big coastal taipans, but
You would have
there's a
got my
lot of
follow.
yeah, straight away it would have been first. Um, but yeah, so there's a whole bunch of smaller um, wildlife in Australia that they don't get seen very much, and they are often forgotten about. And so I've sort of called it Little Brown Skink for that reason. And then I started making videos, probably a year or two ago, sort of put my face out there. It wasn't really on the internet before I started making those videos. And I think it's a good way to get the engagement, and people are seeing a person and they're seeing me talking about something. And often I've got some facts about this animal I'm looking at. And yeah, I try and shoot them in situ or as little disturbance as possible. So you won't see me like typically grabbing things and like yeah, it's kind of a unique style of content and people seem to enjoy it.
Yeah, and as soon as you put your face in it, people are able to connect with it more. So if there's
Yeah.
a face and an animal and an interesting fact, I think you've got the foundation there to make some fantastic content, which is exactly what you're doing. And I brought it up earlier, and we're almost at the hour mark. I don't want to forget it. The blind cave gudgeons.
Oh yes, yeah.
Tell us about them.
Yep. So they live in cave systems under the ground near Exmouth. This is the one endemic to the Exmouth region. There's another one on Barrow Island, and I think there's another one as well. Um, but yes, so they live in a freshwater column of water that's got a saltwater column underneath it. And they live in cave systems close to the coast. So their cave systems are actually influenced by the tide. So when the tide goes up, these gudgeon will move up with the cave and down. And so there were times where we would visit the caves and you look down and you can't see any water. And there are other times where you look down and you see lots of water. and then you'd see the little blind cave gudgeons. Um, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of them, all underground, but there's only a few spots where you can actually see them. Uh, with I would say relatively easy access, but it is pretty hard. You do have to go down and get dirty with them. Um, but yeah, they're about this big, and they can't see anything. Um, they have these little sensory bits all over their body, which feel vibration in the water. So they're eating dead insects that are falling into the water, and little bits and pieces. Like I think they must feed on droppings of animals as well in the cave system. But I actually sprinkled some sand in a pond with the blind cave gudgeon, and the vibrations made it go straight to the source straight away. So they're very switched on.
I guess they kind of have to be pretty not super fussy being in such an extreme sort of environment. I imagine if something hit the water or made a movement, they'd have to at least investigate it, if not, try to swallow it first and then figure it out later.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're a really interesting animal. I shone a UV torch on them, thinking that they might pop or glow. Um, they don't.
They
They're
don't.
just purple. They just turn purple, which is like, but no like neon kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, they would definitely take whatever they can get when they're underneath the surface.
What was the water temperature like? Do you know? Is it just influenced by the water, the salt water under it,
It's
the tide
quite
coming in and
warm.
out?
Yeah, it's quite a warm temperature. Inside the caves are really hot. So you get in the caves, and well, there's not very many caves you can get into there. But you get into them and you're sweating straight away. Like it's hot. You don't want to stay in there for more than 20 minutes or half an hour because you just lose so much water. Like it's crazy. And then the water temperature itself, we didn't like. I don't remember touching the water too much because obviously the gudgeons are in there and it's crystal clear water. But from memory, it was warmer than you'd expect. Like it's not cold.
Yeah.
Even though it might be 13 degrees outside, it's like 40 in the cave.
Wow, that is bizarre.
Hmm.
Man, little extremophiles are cool, and especially something that we can kind of relate to. Being a fish, it takes a form of something that we're so familiar with, but occupies a little part of nature that's just, well, it's unfamiliar. So, um,
Yeah.
awesome, very cool.
Yeah, it's
So
not where
what?
people are meant to be.
No, but that's where little fish with practically no eyes are meant to be.
Yeah.
Um, we've kind of covered it a bit, sort of somewhat vaguely, but what's your plans for the future, if any?
Um, what? I'd like to do more fauna survey work across Australia and then overseas as well.
Oh yeah,
Um, the logistics in that will be exciting. Um, but I really like going out to different sites and seeing what wildlife is there. I'll continue to make videos for my Instagram channel. Um, what else? Yeah, I've got a couple more trips planned. I'll jump around the country a bit more. I'll definitely keep photographing animals. I might actually buy a mirrorless camera. Might yeah, bite the bullet there, and stop using the one I've been using for 10 years. Actually might use that as a camera trap instead. Like do that whole DIY thing,
yeah,
with the
nice,
laser triggers and everything. But
very
yeah,
cool.
that's about it. Yeah, keep going where I'm at. Like I'm pretty comfortable with what I'm doing in life right now. And it's definitely exciting enough. Um, yeah, I don't have very many moments where I'm bored at all,
Man, I'm
ever.
glad it's exciting enough because I feel to the average punter, you're out there doing it. You got a hell of an exciting life, I reckon.
Well, cheers. I've tried to make it that too, like over many years.
Yeah, you're doing it. You're doing it for sure. Well, um, I'm pretty happy to wrap it up there, unless there's anything else that you were wanting to talk about.
Um, well, not really. I mean, I went to Costa Rica a few months ago, and that'd be a whole other podcast in itself. It was very good over in Costa Rica. There's lots of good
Well,
herbs.
well, give us a couple of highlights. You can't just drop that and then and then move along.
We got eyelash pit vipers over there, which are really exciting.
Awesome.
Um, we got some small gecko species, which look real funny. They're like a forest gecko. They're about this big, and they've got beautiful eyes. They were really nice to see. Um, what else do we get? Oh, salamanders. Salamanders. Okay, so we got
Awesome. Yeah.
I think three species of salamander, and I'd never seen one before. So I was very happy with that, seeing an animal like a salamander, having never seen them before, just blew my mind, like that they exist. And I've seen photos everywhere of salamanders, like all the American herpers, they posting salamander pictures all the time, and there's
Yeah.
some other salamanders
You
in,
get bored of them.
yeah, yeah. But when you actually see them in person, like they're little bloody rippers. Like they move quite slow, but they move at a speed where if you turn away and you change your settings on your camera and you look back, you can't see them.
Then it's gone.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, so they were really really cool. We got poison dart frogs, uh, red-eyed tree frogs. Yeah, it was a good time. Macaws,
You
monkeys.
ticked off a few of the big ones with the eyelash viper, the red-eyed tree
Mm,
frog, and the poison dart frogs. They're all some of the
yeah,
bigger
iguanas.
ticket
Yeah,
items.
lots of
Oh, of
iguanas over
course.
there. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it was great. We got a tree boa as well when we were there, and
Like a green one,
sorry, not a green one. I think it's called
an
Amazon.
Amazon tree boa,
It's similar to an Amazon
emerald
tree
tree
boa.
boa. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, no, it's I think it's called a ringed or annulated tree boa.
Annulated
Um, yeah, and we got caiman or caiman. I don't know how you pronounce it. Caiman, the crockies.
caiman. Yeah,
Cayman. Yeah, we got a
yeah.
couple of
Crocs. Yeah.
those. Um, yeah, toucans. Yeah. Oh, that was great.
Two cans better than one can. How did that trip come about? Were you on some sort of expedition, or did you have a guide, or just
So
freestyled it?
yeah, I have a mate who's half Costa Rican, and they were over there, so I went up and caught up with her, and she showed me around parts of it, but then we hired a car and we went around, uh, 1,200 kilometers of Costa Rican coastline, essentially, and up in the mountains as well. And yeah, that's about it. Like it's pretty good.
Pretty good. Pretty
Yeah,
good.
it's pretty good. Yeah, like
That's
I feel
pretty
like
good.
yeah. Well, I was sick for the first week, so I like sort of wasted some of the herping time. Um, yeah, so I only really herped for about 3 weeks there.
Oh man, you can't help that. It's bound to happen.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely
Yeah.
want to go back at some stage.
Oh, there's. I feel like if you do a trip that you've got plans to do, and you've got this whole list of things that you want to do and you want to see, it's almost impossible to tick everything off in one trip. You always leave a trip thinking, oh yeah, I'll go back then.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. And yeah, I feel like I didn't even scratch the surface of Costa Rica or, Central America. So one day I'd like to actually go South America and do all that. And yeah, I could sit here for hours talking about all the places I want to go. But I think it's good to have something to look forward to.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I'll be looking forward to our or my listeners here in this podcast, man. It's been great.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you, Joe.
And I reckon we could do another one. There's plenty to talk about there. But in the meanwhile, if people are wanting to see some of the pictures and some of the content to come from these trips, whereabouts can they find you?
Yes, so Little Brown Skink on Instagram is the best way to find them. I had a friend actually make this shirt uh, the other day as a present for me, and it's got all these skinks that I'd photographed and uploaded onto Flickr, and she painted those and created a shirt with screening something. But yeah, so Little Brown Skink on Instagram, and I think it's Jay Righty on Flickr. Um, Usually there's a link on my Instagram bio for my Flickr account, but Flickr's basically where I publish all of the photos from my camera that I've edited, and there's 6,000 photos on there from me over the last 10 years or so. So, yeah, if you want the majority of pictures, you can access my Flickr. But if you want a quick sort of snapshot, then Instagram's definitely the way to go. And then there's
Yeah, sweet.
YouTube, but YouTube's been very neglected.
I did look before this episode. It's been a couple of years since the last upload, I think.
Yeah, it has. It's a bit hard to do those.
It is, yeah. It takes a bit of effort, but that's all right. I'll put whatever links you've got in the description. And thanks again for coming on. Appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you so much, Joe. Have a good one.
Thanks, Justin. As always, everyone, thanks so much for listening. Feel free to reach out on Instagram and all that stuff. Like, follow, subscribe, and thanks very much.